Hey, what's up, guys? Zero One here, and I'm here with my good friend JB, and we're gonna be reviewing Terminator Genisys.
I'm glad you didn't call me 1-0.
Okay, so we're gonna speak about what Genisys is all about. Basically, it brings Terminator 1 and 2 together, and also it expands on it. In other words, we have a time that's shift or has been broken because of somebody sending an earlier Terminator to destroy and kill Sarah Connor. So we have Arnold, who has gone back even further than the 84 to protect Sarah Connor when she was a child.
I think first I'd like to go ahead and cover what I considered were the good things about the movie.
Yes.
And then go into the things that we really didn't like so much about it. So first of all, Mr. Schwarzenegger, if you're ever going to watch this, you did a good job. Thank you. You did a really good job. I'm a fan, been a fan for quite some time. So just want to say that off the bat right away. And that kind of goes to my first point about the movie, that Mr. Schwarzenegger did a very good job on it. As
Zero One
pointed out, pretty much every line that he says, you're going to laugh. He doesn't say much, but when he does, for the most part, it's comedic.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I think the futuristic scenes were great. And I wish I could see more of these future portions. Because I like seeing the laser guns and the Terminators, and I think that I know that we're talking about Part 5 here, but I think that the director James Cameron did a really good job as far as how I guess you saw the contrast between humanity and the robots, where the humans, they had tattered clothing, old clothing, they didn't have much to eat, versus and their weapons, they were more sophisticated than what we have now, yet they didn't seem to quite be on par with what the machines had. The machines had like these big old automatics, and then in Part 1 you see Kyle Reese shooting like the semi-automatic laser gun. Of course, in Part 2, you see the soldiers with automatics at that point. But I did like what they did with the future in this one. You got to see more of it, and it wasn't just a dream sequence like they did in Terminator Part 3. So that was definitely cool. And finally, we got to see the time machine that they actually used. So that was a plus also. And this is a huge spoiler alert. Skynet finally makes an appearance in this movie. In fact, he actually shows up in bodily form at the beginning of the movie, and then towards the end you get to see him as a kind of like a hologram. It's portrayed as a hologram as a child, and then as Genisys as a 01 we'll talk about a little bit later, you see how Skynet starts to progress into a man. Any other good points that you remember about the movie?
One thing that I really appreciate about the film was Arnold coming back, because after
Bach.
after watching 3 and 4, you kind of like, the audience really doesn't trust the series anymore, where it's headed, because
this is going to get to a good point, right?
Yeah, it's going to get to a good point, okay. Because when we actually see Arnold come back as a Terminator, and he does his one-liners, and
classic Arnold.
Yeah, classic Arnold, and he fights himself. It kind of brings back that nostalgic of the film. You kind of feel like, what? It's like a complete circle. Arnold's facing Arnold, and it's like Terminator versus Terminator, and it's like the same guy, even though one's older and the other one's younger. So it's really kind of odd watching that, but it was pretty cool at the same time. You kind of see, the film that put Arnold on the map, and it was that Terminator movie, especially Part 2, where like everybody was quoting "I'll be back," "I'll be back,"
"Hasta la vista,"
or "Hasta la vista, baby," stuff like that, and it was pretty awesome to see that. I was just like, man, I can't believe it's already been 30 plus years.
And I just realized this movie really doesn't have any quotable lines.
I think the only quotable line is it's in the trailer. Get in if you want to live. Or
no, but I mean nothing new. Like in Part 2, the new line was "Hasta la vista," but Yeah, I don't think any of the other movies ever had any quotable lines after that. Well, aside from that, any other good points? Like I said, Skynet makes an appearance. We see the time displacement device, and I like how they try to get into more of the science behind the time travel, and they actually give a little bit more explanation as to why only organic matter can time travel. I know that they told us that in part one, but they didn't really go in depth. Here they expand on that a little bit more. I also like the fact that Sarah Connor actually looks like a 19 to 20-year-old girl. No disrespect to Linda Hamilton at all, but it was always my observation or opinion that when I saw part one, I thought, I never saw her as a 19 or 20-year-old. Like, I thought she was a little bit older than that. And then kind of when I read the reviews about the Terminator, they were saying, oh, she kind of fit in that age range. And the same thing with Kyle Reese. I didn't see with Michael Bihn's character, or Michael Biehn, I didn't see him as that. At some point I read he was like in his late 20s, and I was like, okay, I'll buy that. That makes sense. But I like the fact that in this movie, she actually looks like, it's a young lady playing it, and it fits, it makes sense, and she even acts it well. It was a little bit weird because she doesn't quite fit the Linda Hamilton the way she portrays, so you got to get used to it. But other than that, there is a lot of nodding to the part one and part two. You'll see characters like Miles Dyson, Danny Dyson. They make an appearance. Even though this wasn't directly quoted or stated in the movie, but all the people that were killed in part one by the Terminator, they're alive now. So they're alive.
Yay!
So I don't know if this is actually going to have any effect later on. But I think that was pretty cool, and you'll see a lot of, like, for those of you that really have the memory, that really have part one and part two, well, mostly part one. No, there's some part two, like really like ingrained in your brain. There's a lot of like scenes that they redid over, which 01 didn't like, but I liked it. I like the fact that you see, for example, the bomb, and they have the same lines as they did in the first one. You'll even see how at the very end of the movie, when Kyle Reese is fighting off, John Connor, he's swinging at his head, just like in part one when he was fighting Arnold's endoskeleton. And then the way this Sarah Connor is shooting John is kind of the same way that Sarah was shooting the T-1000 back in part two. So there's a lot of different, tipping of the hat to the first two movies. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That, and for me personally, watching films, when a director takes a project, especially a project that like Terminator or Aliens, who people really adore, you kind of want to put a little bit of your own spin, but at the same time keep it to the original. And sometimes I felt like the director was just copying off of the original, Jim Cameron's Terminator 1 and 2, which basically were, how can you beat Terminator 2? Because that, story was awesome. You were rooting for everybody. You were rooting for the T-1000. The T-1000 was so cool when it came out. I was like, wow. And in this one, we get a T-3000, which is something that, it's an upgrade from the T-1000. And it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool.
T-3000?
Yeah, it's a T-3000.
Are you talking about the one that was
No, it's John Connor. They just call it T-3000.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's T-3000.
Okay.
Excuse me. And the T-1000 does appear, but it's not the original T-1000 as we know.
And I thought, thank you. That brings up another cool point. Like in this movie, I don't know if this T-1000 is an upgrade from Robert Patrick's T-1000, or if it's just that in T2 we never actually got to see the full potential, as Isaac01 put it. But in this movie, you get to see how the T-1000 can actually kind of help reactivate inactivated T-800 machines. And also, like, there's this one scene where I never actually saw it in the movie, but apparently he shoots some of his liquid metal on the escaping vehicle where Arnold's character and Sarah and Kyle are running away from, and that thing is actually tracking their movement. And so I thought that was pretty neat how they gave the T-1000 a little bit more capabilities. So I don't know what your thoughts are about that.
Well, the T-1000, it's like my favorite villain from all the Terminator series. It's like death embodiment, and he has no compassion, no remorse, but he's such a menacing weapon. So I really felt like in this team with T-1000, excuse me, who was played by a Korean actor named Lim Bayun Lim. He had very little lines, as we saw. I really want Robert Patterson to come back to fulfill Patrick. There you go, to fulfill the whole mythos of Terminator, because you have Arnold and if you had Robert in there too, oh, it'd been awesome. It's like deja vu all over again. But at the same time, things happen. So I would definitely love to see something like that. But still, the actor who played the T-1000, he had it down. He had no facial expression. He looked like a menacing weapon. The only drawback with the T-1000 is that you didn't see its fullest potential. I really wanted to see the T-1000 from the time that we saw Terminator 2, where he can run, he can go through walls, he can do all these things, and it's like we didn't see that at all. We just were very much obliged to just see a couple of minutes of the T-1000. That's it, and that's one of the drawbacks of the Genisys film. We didn't see too much of the T-1000. We got the T-3000, but I would love to see more of the T-1000 go at full potential.
I guess now we're going to transition over to the cons of the movie.
Yeah, let's transition with the cons, because well, do you have anything else positive about the film? Because before we do the transitioning,
I will say, for those of you that have noticed that Mr. Schwarzenegger's character has died every single movie.
Yeah.
He finally lives! This is the first movie where he actually lives, and he gets an upgrade.
He gets an upgrade, and yet he does not go back to his younger self, or doesn't look younger. No. He stays in his old
self
form.
But he's alive, he's functioning, and and another thing. This is the first time in the Terminator series where you actually get to see Kyle, Sarah, and John all together. And as I was watching the movie, I was like, man, I finally get to see the whole family together. Granted, at this point, John Connor's already, been turned into a machine, which we'll get into later. For that brief little moment in time, everything was good. And as I saw them walking all together in family, like, wow, I never thought I would ever see this. Kyle alive, Sarah alive, with John. So I thought that was pretty cool to see.
That was pretty cool. And I mean, before we transition, I think another cool thing that I loved about Genisys was I got to see J.K. Simmons. Oh, he's in this one, and he does a phenomenal job. Just the scenes that he comes out, he delivers.
Who's that?
J.K. Simmons, the detective.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He does an amazing job, because when you first see him, he looks just like one of those conspiracy theories nuts, where it's like there's something wrong with this guy, and he's like showing his superiors, like, no sir, check this out, it wasn't a bomb, they were traveling through time. And his superior looks at him like,
they came out of the orb.
Yeah, they came out of the orb, and he looks at it like the superior officer looks at him and like, there's something wrong with you, man, like, come on, time travel orb, and nobody believes him, but he somehow knows, even though it was just a few minutes of him coming out, he does a memorable job. He does an amazing job.
That doesn't mean that he only comes out a couple of minutes in one scene. He appears throughout the movie. It's just not a lot.
Yeah, he appears. Let's just say when they go into 2017, because they time travel like 3 times, he appears, J.K. Simmons. And when you see him, you're like, dude, as soon as I saw him, I was like, I just need Peter Parker to appear. Because we all know J.K. Simmons plays...
J. Jonah Jameson.
J. Jonas Jameson.
Yes.
We all know that. And he did a flawless job in Spider-Man 2. So thank you so much, J.K. Simmons. You did a great job. And even though you just came out a couple of minutes, or a couple of scenes. There you go. You came out a couple of scenes.
More than a couple. But we get what you're saying.
Yeah, you did a great job, and you add a different flavor to the movie, and I like that.
Actually, I guess that'll be transitioning over to the con area.
Yeah.